Let's see here. Should be live now. Let me turn this music down a little bit. See if you guys can see and or hear me. Alrighty. Alright, looks like we're live. Let me pop the chat out. And then I'll leave it to you guys to let me know if the audio is too loud. There's that. Here's the chat. Polygraph, thank you. Is the let me know if the audio is too loud relative to my voice here. Wanted to keep it a nice little background, classical. It's like the only royalty-free music out there, seems like. Alright, well, unless I hear differently, I'm going to assume you guys can hear me just fine. And, yeah, so welcome to my Pixelogic demonstration slash dev stream. A little about me. I am Tim Rapp. I am the co-founder of High Horse Entertainment. We are working on a little arcade action sports game called Disc Jam. And what I'm going to be focusing my stream on is sort of the rapid content pipeline that we use. A big part of being an artist is just being time aware, and since we're a two-man team building an entire multiplayer online game, it gets to be to the point where it's really critical that we don't spend too much time digging into the beautification of assets that are going to be so far away from the camera or not get a lot of real estate. I could sit here all day and dig into these models and just love every second of it, but it's just not realistic, and it's really important for us that we are smart about how we spend time, and art is one of those things that you can just you can get so deep down the rabbit hole with a prop or a character that next thing you know, things are slipping out of your time window because your schedule has been pushed for something that no one's ever going to even see because it might be so far away from the camera that it doesn't even render the detail you're putting into it. So being aware of like what's important to the game and what's critical to the game shipping on time at all times is really kind of what defines our art pipeline. So Disc Jam is a sort of, you'll see here that this is like a few screenshots here of how the game looks, and the typical camera perspective is from way back here. So the way we kind of work is I stand up props in a blockout phase like most artists do. I'll just put shapes in place that sort of fill the space and make sure that they get the proper camera real estate. You'll notice we don't have any UI in our game. All of our UI is in environment. So when we're blocking those things out, we have to make sure that as the camera moves throughout the course of the game action, the critical things like the score and the rally count are all visible. And, you know, just making sure that we don't ever get things clipped off screen. So a lot of times it's about the balance of checking where your art's going to land on camera in a way that's not going to occlude the players, occlude the relevant information, so on and so forth. So, you know, and then one of our main custom content pieces here are these custom discs. So you know, this is like our default disc that we use for most everything right here, and we use ZBrush for basically 90% of our modeling pipeline. I don't use as many traditional modeling packages as I used to. With the advancement of QModeler, or I guess it's ZModeler. With ZModeler, you know, we can do a lot of this stuff right there in the package. And so I'm going to be doing some custom props built up, and you'll kind of see how I work in the sense of we do. What's up, Dank? Look at we got the Jam Fam joining us here. What's up, Danker? Yeah, so, you know, what we're going to be doing is building some of these custom discs. I think in future dev streams I'll do some character work, but for now we're going to be doing just some sort of disc development so I can kind of show you how things go in our typical pipeline. We move pretty quick, and you know, hopefully if I have enough time, we'll get the prop wrapped up here, and we'll throw it in game, and I'll bring the game up, and we'll play with it. So we'll be able to kind of go from just absolutely nothing to in-game playable all through the course of this stream. And the way I kind of work, and the reason my stream is titled what it's titled, which is iterative, rapid content production for an iterative pipeline. What that means is our pipeline is based largely on staging of models. This is something that I learned a lot about from Michael Pavlovich, who's another one of Pixelogic's amazing teachers. He's got the most content probably out there of anybody how to learn ZBrush. So if you haven't checked out Pavlovich's stuff, be sure to check it out, because he basically taught me everything I know about this software package back when I first got started. But he did GDC talk in 2015, and it was all about sort of failing fast and seeing how things work or do not work in game, like right away, like before you dig into final production and final polish. Try to get it in engine and try to see what it's like with a base poly paint and a base coat of paint on there, and see if it works or not. You'll find the things that don't work a lot easier in the process, and as a two-man team, that's just critical for us. We don't have the time to find out in the stage 3 or stage 4 of polish that, oh my god, like this prop doesn't work at all, the characters can't grip it, or it obstructs this one other part of the geo, and like, so those things we have to find out immediately. So the way I kind of work, and we'll get into it here, is to just get as bulky a version of the prop as possible, get proportion correct, get sort of size and relative spacing correct, and then check it in, let my partner Jay look at it, sign off on it, give feedback, and then, and that's how we kind of iterate. And so we're always iterating, and we're moving as fast as we can, and dedicating time to pieces sort of as they warrant. One of the things I'd like to fix is for example, like I say stages a lot, because we have different stages of these pieces, because this pipeline moves so fast, we get to do things in stages. And for example, the net is in its first stage still. I was going to do a different version of the net, but because of the way it's built modularly, because of how I can one-click UV and export from ZBrush, this net here has been this way since our first build 8 weeks into the game. This center plate over here to the right, this thing right here is still very much blockout. That's going to be getting another polish pass, but we've not received a single complaint about it. And so, it's one of those things that there's a lot more things to worry about, like our fourth character, for example, like more discs for our custom disc content. All those things are more important than this center plate on the left there. So that's the kind of thing that we're going to be doing, just building up some of these props, and then later on future streams, we'll get more into the character stuff. So let's see here. I think the first thing I'm going to do is probably let's walk through one of my existing pieces, just to kind of show kind of where things come from. That's our default first disc we ever did, and I use that as a base for I know for a fact that all the characters can grip this one. I know that the proportions are correct. I know how these lights, let me actually get to the chat here in a minute. I know that these lights all show up decently from our perspective, so they're present but not overwhelming. So this is a good kind of, I basically start every disc from right here, because I know that all these proportions are sound, and that's a big part of my thing too, is that you want to sort of grip all the space language as early as possible, and find out what works and what does not. So welcome everybody. Yeah, Battle Royale Z Modeler is so much fun, and trust me, the more time you spend with it, the more fun it gets. So I would definitely check out all the ZBrush Classroom stuff. I mean, no matter how much I feel like I've mastered this thing, every time there's a new video out, it's like, oh, I didn't even know about that thing you could do. So I move pretty fast with it now, and I'm surprised. I never expected it to replace Maya for me for the low poly stuff, but it totally has. All this stuff you're seeing here was done in Z Modeler, and I can do nice curves, and you can do nice creases so that when you get the high poly detail, it just there's a nice I didn't do anything right there besides have creases in the right place, and now I've got a nice high poly mesh that I can export and build normal maps off of. So what's up, guys? how low of the poly count do you have to shoot for after the high poly? So I actually work a little bit differently, especially for props. And that's actually a good question, Robo Wheels, because typically a lot of artists, they'll get in there with some Dynamesh clay and they'll hack away at it and they'll get a nice sort of rough but refined mesh to then do the high poly detail on and then retaupe afterwards. I do that with my characters. I do that with a lot of my organic stuff. But for a lot of this hard edge stuff, I try to stay in Z Modeler for almost all of it. And occasionally something's just not working, or there's some bevel or some curve that I really want to be a little bit more organic and a little bit more fluid. So I'll jump into a polished version of some high-res geo. But typically, I can do most of this stuff in the hard surface, and that's kind of what I'm going to be getting into with my pipeline. The other instructors are going to be detailing a lot more of the just high-end sculpting talent, much more so than I could. I'm going to be digging into more of the rapid pace, like let's see how good we can make this look in the least amount of time. And it's a bit of a, I don't want to say cheap approach, but it's definitely not the approach as an artist I would like to have. It's just the approach that's most critical for how we do things and how fast a lot of stuff has to come online for us. And we get definitely more positive feedback than negative. There's certainly some art pieces that we get negative feedback on because they're not all the way stood up yet. But for us so far it's been working and we move incredibly fast. So yeah, let's get started here with just a little walkthrough of one of our main sort of custom discs. So the main thing I want to talk about here is the organization of these pieces is what leads to it moving so rapidly. This is the sort of future disk. This is like, kind of like shaped sort of like a Tron disk would be. You'll notice that it's kind of built to the same width and breadth of this disk. That's not by accident. That's because if I know it's that size, it's going to fit in everyone's hands. So here we have our low poly. This is only 1,200 or so points. That equates to around 2,000, 2,400 or so triangles in game. That's a very reasonable prop count for us. Where our next gen game, Disc Jam, is going to be on Unreal. Disc Jam's an Unreal Engine 4 game, so it's going to be PlayStation 4, PC, and next gen consoles. But you'll notice where I put my extra geo, my extra loops right here, and you'll notice where I put my creases. And that's for two reasons. One, if I did my job correctly, then I don't need to come in and hand retaupe this. Two, I also don't need to UV this. A big part of my workflow is trying to minimize what I cannot do procedurally. It's definitely, again, I'm limiting myself in that regard as an artist. Like I have to constantly weigh the look and the feel of something versus the time it'll take to bring through an entire pipeline. That is to say, low res, high res, textures, UVs, then textures, and then finally, in-game shading. So, there's no real way to kind of master that without doing it a bunch of times. Like the lessons that I'm going to be trying to share with you guys are ones that I've learned by doing things the wrong way and finding out that in-game, this would have been so much faster just if I had made these creases this way. And so typically the way I kind of work is I'll have something along these lines. Here's a good example. Here was the disc before I put in my creases, right? So let's just say I'm done sculpting, I've done all my Q meshing. Delete higher here. I've done all my Q meshing, and I'm going to move pretty fast. So a lot of the other instructors have been doing a good job of sort of like walking through their process. If I'm moving too quickly, just let me know. I'm going to be going pretty quick, just because I do sort of find I learn the most when guys are just working at their pace, and I can always rewind the tape and things like that. So I've done all my Z modeling here, and I've got a let's just say I've got no poly groups. I've got all my cuts in there how I like them. I like I've put in some things over here. Maybe I put a little nice little panel right there. I like the little in cut right there, so on and so forth. So I've done all my modeling, and I'm at this point now. That's tend to be where I get this to here. And then what I typically do, and this is pretty new in my process. I've only kind of started doing this for the DisJam project, but I've made all this stuff sort of automated, and these are all hotkeys. You can find this stuff in the side menu, of course. But I tend to keep things local as possible. If I don't ever have to open this, I'm happy. So you'll notice that my custom UI here, it's very kind of dense, but it's useful because I use kind of everything here. If I find something that it's been taking up screen real estate and I don't use it, I'll remove it and slap something else in. And so I've kind of settled on this UI because I don't really ever have to go to this menu. Like the only thing I need the side menu for is subtool management, and I'm like looking forward to maybe one day building a custom pop out that can help me with the subtool ordering. But anyway, that being said, so what I do here when I'm at this point is you'll notice these hard edges. Most artists will tell you 90-degree edges are a problem, and they are. When you bake meshes, 90-degree edges, you cannot find, the baker won't find the edges. So the conventional wisdom says you want to bevel those things, or do a hard edge split on your UV island. And what that's going to mean is that when you do a hard edge split on your UV island, your normal map will know to come in and take the detail from both this face and that face. If you had no split right here, the normal map would come in at an angle and would create artifacts all along these seams. So most artists battle that in a number of ways, and again, it's either, do you add supporting geo around it? Do you come in here and just bevel that edge loop and like shade it out that way? The guys at Sunset Overdrive did a really good talk about how they maintain hard edges everywhere and have a very custom process where they do their trims, and their 90-degree angles are just fine in game because they've built custom normal processes for getting that detail out of there. So that was really exciting to see. I kind of adopted a little bit of that thinking, and what I do is I basically just do procedural as much as possible. I'll group by normals, and that'll automatically give me a nice. I'll group by normals up to about 60, which is pretty high. But as you can see, that in one click, I've got really good UV islands all of a sudden. So one more click, crease polygroups, and now everything is sort of in that high resolution area already. I guess I probably need to do a little bit lower. Let's go to 40. Boop. Crease polygroup. Yeah. And then so there we go. There's our high resolution detail in just one click. And then finally, if I go into UV master, unwrap by polygroups, I've now in 3 clicks got a fully textured piece that has high resolution detail. All those creases are expected. This one in the middle is not. But that's basically how I get to here, which is a fully creased out, game ready prop. And after doing a little bit of subdivision on that, I will then uncrease and do a couple more subdivisions and get that nice bevel on the edge there. And that little rounded bevel right there, I'm up to about 5 million here. That little round bevel right there is going to show up on my UV islands because of what I just said about the hard edges. Because that 90-degree edges are on separate UV islands, and they have different smoothing groups. That is to say, they have there's going to be a hard mesh edge along that line. That means that this little sexy bevel right there, see if I can do it in gray, you can see that little highlight is going to catch on a 90-degree flat normal bake. So what happens there is all of those little details, those nice little soft bevels, start catching light. And even though this is an extremely, this is a pretty simple mesh. This is a really simple mesh. I can spin this up in a matter of 5, 10, 15, I only say like 20 minutes, right? And at that point, I've already got a game ready mesh. It's already been UV'd. It can be textured in one click. And from there, I throw it over. I'm not going to go into these texturing packages all that much, but what I do is maximize the texture space, build out a quarter of it or a third, depending on how much I want the repetition to exist. Slap down. That's the exact same mesh. That's just a built-in corner of it. Same mesh right here. Normal map projected onto those things. You'll see it catching light in all the places I want it to. It looks like there's a lot more detail than there is. And then we can have this in game as this. And I'll just fire up the game right here real quick to show you guys what this looks like at runtime. You know, and again, like that's the whole thing, is how fast we can stand that up and yet get a decent high resolution look from the part. So despite only doing a little bit of Z-modeler and, you know, like I said, like not a ton of detail here, we then have this thing in here right there in game. So like we get a lot of positive feedback on this disc. You know, it certainly seems like it's a lot higher process than it is. I use Substance Painter Battle Royale. I find that the baking and texturing workflow in one place is making me so much faster than I ever was before. If I export my stuff from ZBrush, I'll do all my naming convention in ZBrush. One-click export my low poly, one-click export my high poly, import them both to Substance, one-click bake, and if I've done my job right, every UV island is in the correct place. All of the meshes line up, and it's just a one-click high-resolution bake, and I'm done, and I'm texturing. That used to take so much longer than it does now. With these modern tool pipelines, it's a matter of minutes. What used to be a matter of hours. I'm not exaggerating that. It is completely lightning fast. So anyway, we're going to be building some of this stuff. The retro disc, for example, this is just a funny kind of throwback disc that we did, and that's literally a matter of probably in game in about 5 to 10 minutes, and it's another one of our popular discs. Those of you who use ZModeler will kind of you'll kind of see me cheating here, and you'll see just what a kind of phone-in disc this kind of really is. You'll notice the in cuts are right out of ZModeler. You'll notice I had the color palette that I wanted to use, and so I did some very quick Z modeling, and I threw that right in. So and there's our standard disc. You kind of see some of the same shape language, and you kind of see where the in cuts all kind of are made there. So yeah, back in the day, texturing in Photoshop, doing it by hand, exporting in Photoshop's weird exporters, all those things are such a pain. So the way that these new tools are standing out, and Marmoset's got a pretty rad new baker, I'm told, as well. So I'm pretty excited to check that out when I can. Okay, so Axel Chamberlain, real quick, I'll let you know about Joe Cool. I'll answer that question in a second. To do so, the naming convention in ZBrush for baking a Substance Painter. Let's see if I can bring up a nice prop here that we can look at that specifically in. The multiplier net, it's a good one. So this is our centerpiece net, and you'll notice that there's all of these. I don't know if you guys can see in the resolution. I should be at high enough resolution you guys should see this, so let me know if you can't. But the naming convention for all of these things are high, HI, underscore HI, and underscore low, LO. So for all these pieces, everything that goes into our net has both a high and a low, and the low is what the game mesh is, of course, and the high is going to be the detail that's exported out to be baked. So I'll just do some quick visibility, and with what I have here, it looks like I have all the highs selected, so I'll just go to that. This is the high resolution prop only, and that's all the high resolution detail. If I wanted to hide that and go all through all my lows, that's all my low resolution detail, and then I will export via FBX one composited mesh of all. So I'll just do it for you. So here's all the low poly detail, right? They all have underscore low for all their names. Z plugin, FBX export, export visible, smooth normals, export, and I'll throw that into mesh, and you can see these are underscore high, underscore low, gashapon underscore high, gashapon. Throw those all into there, do another one here where I then will go through hi, 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 hello. And then I'll do the same thing for the high resolution. Do one of each. And then once you're in Substance Painter, all you have to do is, I won't go into that package, I'll do more of that on our individual channel. But once you're in Substance Painter, you just say match by name, and underscore high, underscore low are the naming conventions. And then in Substance Painter, it will know to bake this detail only to the arrow mesh, and this detail only to the net mesh. So if you've named them properly, multiplier underscore high, multiplier underscore low, then you're one click, baked everything, and you're done. And the best thing about that is, I say iterative pipeline a lot. That's because inevitably you're going to make mistakes in this process. It's just a matter of doing a lot of props, and there's a lot of little pieces, and some of the pieces have 20 high and low pieces, and characters have 50 plus. And so when you're doing things like that, you're going to make mistakes here and there. When you do the high poly bake, you can just one click do the bake, and you'll pick out your errors instantly. And so usually that boils down to, oh, this thing's in the wrong space, or I forgot to name this thing. Oh, I spelled, there's a typo in the naming convention. Once you kind of start finding those things are, you can iterate so fast. Meaning, oh, here's the first block out of the thing. I can do a nice bake. It only takes me 3 or 4 clicks, 5-10 minutes. It's in game, ready to go. All right, now that prop is in there. My partner signed off on it. We like it. Let's put more detail in there. So I can come back. I can change only the 2 or 3 parts I want to change. 1, 2, 3, quick bake, and go right back into my texture package. I won't lose the texture detail I've already done. I won't lose the painted on normals and stuff that I've done in post. I don't lose any of that stuff. All that stuff's preserved in my texture package. So I say iterative pipeline because we decided we're going to get rid of these. We're going to get rid of those arrows because they don't actually have a gameplay function. So here's a really good example of that. We're going to get rid of those arrows because they don't actually do anything in game for us. What we're going to replace them with is this nice little score panel, and our scoreboard will show you with a little like kind of fluid bar graph. It'll show you how close you are to winning the set, and that's going to go right here. So like we basically, without losing all the stuff I've done on the other parts of this texture model, the other parts of the texture in this model, I've removed some subset of it. My UVs are all preserved. I cut out these faces, re-UV'd those, slotted them into my texture map, and everything I've done in the previous part of our prop is maintained. And that's really exciting because usually with game pipelines you have to avoid being destructive. And being destructive is kind of a necessary evil at a lot of times. But with the way, how fast I can rip a Z-modeler, how easily I can crease everything, and you'll notice that part has been isolated because that's the part I want to, remove the texture out. I can crease this whole thing by about 75, and then boom, crease those polygroups, Z plugin, unwrap by polygroups with symmetry. I've done that, and now boom. That's a totally valid normal map. Of course, that's a totally valid UV map. Of course, it can be optimized. But once you take this over to Maya, 3ds Max, wherever, that's a one-click process now too. The way that the UV stackers and organizers and flatteners all work now in mainstream, DCC packages, that's one click as well. So staying procedural as much as I can is really important. MoveCat, do I project the higher poly model onto the lower? Absolutely right. So are you asking about in my process of building the model, or are you talking about for texturing? The short answer is kind of both. Depends on the task at hand. But I often, if I want to do something organic, for example, I'll sculpt a low resolution detail. I will get it to a high poly state, and then I will jump back in, do retopology, and then project the high poly to the low poly so the low poly kind of bubbles out and fills the high poly space. I do that a lot as well. That's a more traditional pipeline. I use that more for organic stuff when I want to get good deformation for our characters and stuff. Make sure that the shoulders have a lot of edge loops and put special attention to elbow, things like that. I'll do that stuff, and then I'll bring it back and project that way. Otherwise, I'll do basically as I was just describing, which is like for hard edge stuff, I do a lot of what I was just saying, which is I tend to stay as low as possible, define good low poly shapes, and then generate my high poly after the fact. So let's get out of UV here. Unflatten. Yeah. So naming conventions, yeah, the D78, those naming conventions are case sensitive, and as you'll notice, if you go into ZBrush's renamer, you can't underscore. There's a shortcut for underscoring. I think it's like, I forget what it is. I know there's a shortcut for it, but one thing to keep in mind is spacebar also automatically underscores. So if I wanted to rename something, new name, space, hi, it's always going to capitalize the prop, or sorry, it's going to capitalize the name, and then even though you can't see it here, it's automatically going to put an underscore there. So if I were to close this and reopen it, there's going to be an underscore there for the high poly. That's key. So I tend to just go through, double click on the thing, rename, and then single click, rename, and then just kind of nonchalant just say net underscore low. And I know that the underscore is going to be there, and I always got to make sure that I've remembered that the capitalization. If I get caught by anything when I'm doing my bakes, it's that I forget that it automatically capitalizes. So I might be in Maya and I have a lowercase prop name, but then when I go to name everything in ZBrush, I blow it that way. So that's something to keep in mind. Yeah. So do I design the high poly first, then go back in history for low poly, other way around? Yeah. So basically, it's a combination of both, as I was saying before. It really depends on the piece. For something like the discs, I tend to work purely in ZModeler, and I'm actually trying to get better at this, and it's something that I do. You know, I've gotten pretty happy with where I'm at right now with it. I've learned enough about, you know, doing kind of like the cool insets, and you know, just hit the space, inset poly, inset region, build a little kind of window there, cut these up, build that, switch it up to QMesh, dig that in right there, things like that, and then, you know, drop another group by normals on there, and then boom, I've got like a nice little crease for that little thing, and like these edges crease out beautifully, and you know, it just kind of works for me, and then that would be a new UV island right there. So I've gotten pretty fast with that stuff, and I'm pretty happy with going. So when I'm doing a prop like this, that once again, the camera's so far back, you're almost never up close to this thing. The only time you're up close to this thing is in the customization menu, and as I showed when I shared a screenshot of it, it's plenty detailed for the customization menu. So I tend to work in low poly and then auto generate my high poly. And that's kind of the point of my whole kind of talk here, is that like in a perfect world, I could sit here and noodle this in high poly all day long, and you know, get some subdivisions, and then come back in and build some. You know, if I wanted to build some sexier cuts in this, I would, you know, put it in high poly. You know, get a decent resolution Dynamesh. And this happens for a lot of other props. Delete lower. Let's Dynamesh this thing. So I'm gonna turn this into a big ball of clay now with Dynamesh. So yeah, oop, there we go. Wait for the program to respond here. It might have set my resolution too high. So yeah, like I will, if I want to do a little bit more, I guess, curves and organic things on the hard geo, I would work high poly to low poly. That's one of those things that it kind of depends on your task. For the purposes of speed, and what I'm talking about today with how I generate my creases, my hard edges, my UV islands, and ultimately my texture. Looks like I kind of blew it. I think I probably did too much there. The way I like to work for these props is I go only low to high for a lot of these props. And again, it's not, you know, I'm not wild about the fact that I don't have enough time to dig into this stuff as much as I'd like. But again, it's so much about speed for us at this stage in our project that it's really a matter of just like needing to get to the high poly detail as fast as possible, then I'm texturing as fast as possible. So that's why I go this way. Um, you know, like I said, it depends. So is Substance Baker as good as XNormal? I left XNormal's Baker because of that reason. The XNormal Baker is wonderful. The setup is clunky for me, and I don't like how much it takes for me to get to, a place where I need to explode all the meshes and like manually type in the offsets. And you can do like scripts, you can do bake scripts in XNormal that are helpful, but nothing I found is faster than just having a good naming convention and having all of your props living on top of each other, and then things that overlap, like if I have a gauntlet that wraps over with like studs, if I name those things differently, the Substance Painter Baker and Marmoset's Baker will automatically bake those apart from each other. So I don't need to worry about exploding the mesh. I don't need to worry about positioning and offsets. I can just move forward modeling, get the best possible look, and then shoot it off to the package. Mr. Joe Cool, sorry I missed your question. My bad, I'm trying to keep up here. Do game engines support creasing? So, no, not that I'm aware of. I mean, like, creasing to me is more like when you subdivide, does that subdivision, hold geo or not? Like, see how I did a subdivision right there, and it held that geo in place? If I uncreased everything, the subdivision now smooths all that out. So the way I kind of generate my hard edges, I'll crease polygroups. Now all those creases are there. Subdivide, maybe 2 or 3 times, and then I uncrease everything, and then let's do it one less subdivision. Uncrease all, and then boom, boom. That was probably a little bit too much, but again, like then those bevels start coming in, and those little kind of curves right there are what generate those nice highlights for your game engine to pick up. So that's not really the game engine doesn't support creasing in that regard. That's the game engine picking up the detail that's in your normal map. So I hope that answers your question. Can you show to retopo tech? Yeah, I do a lot of the retopo in ZBrush. I can show some of that. I even have my little. I'll walk through my UI a little bit too, because my UI is kind of a mouthful. But yeah, I can show you some of that stuff. Underscore will make an Control Shift underscore make the underscore. Thank you for that, Shane Olsen Art. I knew I actually tried Control and Alt, and I didn't try the combo. So that's what it is for if you want to do the underscore and naming that. I had 0 problems just pressing spacebar to get an underscore. I don't know if there's some other thing that might be caused by that, but live object and snap to it. That's what I would do in Maya. In ZBrush, you can just paint on it with the Z modeler. We can do some of that stuff. You can model in ZBrush instead of sculpting. Oh, absolutely, and we can do some of this stuff. Oh yeah, so the real Greggy, I'm just catching up here, guys. Then after I walk through all this stuff, we're gonna actually start making some pieces, and then once we do that, we'll be doing a lot of the Z modeler, and it's gonna be pretty fun, I think. The two things are basically there's different tools to both. The Maya, Modo, 3ds Max, Z modeler, they all have their low poly kind of tool sets. Some bevels are kind of similar in all of them, but Maya's beveler does a little bit different algorithm. ZBrush's has insets are a really cool thing in ZBrush. So there's a lot of different things in both. So your best bet is to kind of know all of them as much as you can, and then leverage each when you need them. I still go back to Maya every now and then, but like I said, I haven't really needed to lately, which is excellent. Do I bake with a cage? So the Dean, yeah, I try not to. That's part of my whole thing too, is that baking with a cage is sometimes the best way to get rid of some artifacts. I use it when I need to, but like I said, my whole thing is about not needing to, and just if I find out that I need to bake with a cage, I've usually already gotten sign off on the prop before I've even dug into that. So I try not to, but anyway. So how do I go about modeling ZBrush? We'll do some a little bit right here, and then we'll get in there. I've heard Modo is excellent. I've not used it yet. Like once this project finally ships, I have a lot of software I'm just gonna dig into, and Modo is definitely one of them because I think it'll just be rapid, which is what I'm all about, as you can tell. Okay. So have top 5 Z modeler tricks you use most often when producing. I I've probably given at least 2 of those tricks, but let's see if we can't dig into more of them. So in the interest here of, here we go. So the last kind of intro thing I wanted to talk about here is I wanted to walk through all the disks in my process, which I've kind of done with the existing content. The second thing I wanted to do was to go a little bit through my setup here. The main thing that I've done that I did about only a few months ago that's changed everything for me. You'll see these top menu here has T brush, T crease groups, T deform, T geode, T subtool. What those are every single thing I've possibly needed in these side menus. Like when I need something on a regular basis, it goes into a subpalette. When I need something to the point where I got to open this stuff up, it goes into a subpalette. So now I've taken all my hotkeys and thrown them on the left side of my keyboard. So creasing groups, that's on C. So that's all my creasing stuff. Everything I need to do with creasing is right there. Everything I knew with creasing, it tends to do with grouping things and creasing things. That's one click, groups by normals, boom. Like that's one step, and I don't need to open this up, dig it out, geometry, I believe it's under creasing. There's that stuff, and then the polygroup stuff is down here. So there's all my groups by blah blah blah. All of that stuff becomes time consuming when you're just talking about like iterate. So I need to tear this whole thing down. None of these cuts work. I'm going to cut out this whole thing and do a whole different one. Doing the parts where I generate my topology and low res and UVs and all that stuff, it's really important that goes fast. So I need all this stuff on hotkeys. Anything with geometry, that goes on G. So then you have, welding points if I find that I've got some points that aren't right quite there. Optimized points when I'm going to and from Maya and there's stuff that's like they're not agreeing on triangle order. All that stuff happens on G. Grouping by panels, and specifically I do a lot of this Z-remesh. You can get yourself 90% of the way there with Z-remesh, and oftentimes you can get yourself 100% of the way there, and we'll do some of that as well. We'll do with the new keep groups that I think that came out in a recent, I think that's a R7 feature, or maybe it's R7P3 feature, but the keep groups can do such a good job of retaining those hard edges and generating for you a nice low poly base to work from. It's all about getting down to low poly for base geo. When you're talking about game engine stuff, you're talking about efficiency, you're talking about not wasting polygons, you're talking about overall time. So that I can be completely organic and then drop a Z remesher on there. I do that for my characters now. I'll sculpt the muscles and I'll sculpt the anatomy, drop a Z remesh on it with a little bit of extra detail. That captures everything I need, and then I'll go through, make sure there's no cycles, that is to say like polys that wrap around, and just clean up and do a little manual low poly from that. Like that base Z remesh got me 90% of the way there. Okay, Robo Wheels. This is a good question, and I get this a lot, and it took me a while to get to it. So there is the scale plugin, Scale Master, and if you go to ZBrush's site here, Scale Master ZBrush, you'll see that they have a cool little package that handles just this. I don't know how long this has been out. I just heard about this recently via ZBrush's official YouTube channel, but this is awesome, and it allows you to sort of set your world geo accordingly. The question of scale is an important one because I've kind of found there's no ultimate solution there. If I work at game res, these are actually 1/10 scale, because just if you go back and forth with Maya and ZBrush a lot, like I do, the problem you'll find is that Maya starts freaking out and their default camera settings start freaking out at world scale. So something might be working in ZBrush at a certain scale. I work at millimeters. I think that's a native scale of ZBrush, but that Scale Master tool lets you kind of change that. You can get to the point where one of your packages across your pipeline, one of your packages will have an issue with your scale. So through much trial and error, and my partner Jay will he can he'll be reminded of how much I've been screaming about this for just how much frustration I've got my pipeline in order. I got to work at this scale, and I can do everything I need to do, and then boom, it breaks somewhere along the line. It breaks, and it's going to be weird in Substance, or it comes in ZBrush, and I can only get my brush so high because I want to use dynamic, and I can only do the draw. So, things like that start happening, or in Maya, the camera starts clipping with it weirdly. If I don't kind of go into the right place in Maya, it starts clipping in a strange way. So all those things are happening, and so what I've kind of basically done is I've committed to working at 1/10 scale in ZBrush, and then exporting at scale times 10. And what that does for me is that it gets it at a nice place in Maya. It's a perfect resolution in ZBrush. Like I don't really need much more resolution than that right there. If I needed to get any bigger, I can go to the dynamic size and pull out something bigger. But I don't really see the need to do that all that often. And so working at 1/10 scale and keeping an export at x10, I just go back and forth constantly, and I really don't need to do anything more than that. And that solves all my scale problems. As a general recap, split the UVs at the 90-degree angle so the bevel is caught on both UV islands, therefore caught in both smoothing groups and shows up in the lighting. Perfect. That's exactly what it is, Dylan. Yeah, like I understand how limiting that is as an artist. The main thing is that these, like I said earlier, these props don't really get seen at an angle to where it matters that I split that UV island. Another thing to think about is that for efficiency, if you add smoothing groups to all of these points, you're now adding vertices under the hood. Vertices are added not only by geometric vertices, but by also, when you split UVs, you're doing 2 UVs, which in your game engine or renderer are going to be 2 vertices. So your poly count might be 1200, but if you have UV splits on all these hard edges, wherever you want there to be kind of hard edges in my crease workflow, you're adding more geometry. And the reason that's not a big problem for me, and the reason I'm living with that, is because we're a next-gen engine, and I'm never, hardly ever am I restricted by vertice count. So for me, the time I'm saving by procedurally creasing and UVing, saving that time is much more valuable than paying the cost of an extra UV island. It's really not efficient to have a UV island that's one poly like that. That's not efficient. If a good modeler would, because that's not 90 degrees right there, would make this into at least one island. You know what I mean? Like probably this whole stretch would be one UV island, because there's no reason to do splits right there. However, I want to have a nice crease on that. I want that to maintain I want that part right there to maintain its form. So because I want that to maintain its form, I will crease it, and I'll live with the fact that it's going to have an extra UV vertice for all 4 of those things. Because I'm going to automatically unroll my UVs, because I'm going to procedurally pack my UVs and automatically optimize those for real estate, I'm trying to stay as procedural as possible, and I have not had any issues with vertice count. And the fact of the matter is that because I work in that fashion, I'm just every step of the way staying procedural. That means I'm saving so much time that I can iterate and see what doesn't work fast, and then do something and make changes on the fly. That's basically the whole philosophy there. Do you export from Unreal to ZBrush? We already talked about that one. Okay. So do I have a DeviantArt, ArtStation, Facebook, or website page? All I have is our website for the game, which is adding it in chat right there. I would like to one day spin up some of my work into some of those platforms, but I don't have the time right now. We're just making this game, every day, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day for the most part. If I'm not asleep at my desk, so hopefully after the game ships, we'll have more time to sort of share the art and get some of the process out there, and do a little bit more of the public-facing stuff. Yeah, exactly, Dylan. That's exactly the point. So I keep in Maya and CM. CM. What's CM, Shane Olson? Okay, so gone through my UI, gone through sort of my process, I think now we can start making some discs. So let me open up here. So basically, my whole thing is about getting, from sketch to game as quickly as possible. So I'll open this up on a new screen here. But like that's a little sketch of like this drone disc I want to do. So it's kind of like one of these drones. Excuse me. But it's going to be a disc. So like you'll notice I'm not an amazing 2D artist. I never went to school for that. I'm not very practiced in that. What's important to me though is that I get this idea down on paper fast. And I have an idea for what I want to see, and I'll throw it on the other window here, and just have it up, reminding me of what it's going to look like. Get this other crap over here, and then I can get to work, kind of knowing. Actually, let's try something else. The one thing I want to do here for my first disc is I know that I want to do. Oh, keep Maya in cm. Yeah, sorry, Shane. Maya I keep in centimeters. And that's also the default unit for Unreal Engine, which is what our game is built in. So if I know that if the scale makes sense over there, it's going to be in world. I keep Maya in world units essentially. And that caused me a problem. When I do environment stuff, like when I'm building our stadium out, Maya, I need to like do a lot of custom stuff in Maya. So I'll tend to have Maya work at 1/100 scale. When I'm doing like environment props for the whole world, I'll do 1/100 scale, just to make it so I can like keep a little model in front of me and be reasonable in terms of like size. So yeah, we're gonna be building some discs today. I've got a few different ones I want to do. The drone disc I'm gonna do at a separate time because I want to flesh this out a little bit more. But I've got this portal disc that I'd like to build. And then I've got a junkyard disc, which is just like, obviously like this is just a rough sketch. I don't in our pipeline, I don't need finished concepts. I need to be able to see what the shape language is and then be done. So I show this to Jay and I say, hey, is this gonna work? How does this look for you? Like kind of a silly. We're an arcade game, so we don't need to be realistic. Like this is an absurd prop. It would never fly. It would never be throwable. But that doesn't matter. We're making an arcade game here. Let's have some fun with it. So that's kind of how we kind of look at things. So, for example, like we have our beta is live right now. Like DiscJam has an open beta for everyone to try. If you go to discjamgame.com, you can participate in that beta. And we wanted to build something to share with our beta users. So my thought was I wanted to do like a marble and gold, the Greek beta letter. I wanted to do sort of a Greek beta letter in the middle of a disc that was surrounded in marble and gold, sort of like old school style, not old school, but like kind of classical architecture. So that's kind of the thing that I want to focus on for this disc. So like I'll Google some images of what a nice beta image might be. Where's a nice B for beta? I kind of like this one. Let's start with. I wanted to get that like a curvy one with the nice. There's a good one right there. So take something like this, right? Throw a little bit of ref down, just so I can keep an eye on it. Yeah, okay, now we're in business. So I'll get back to ZBrush in a minute here. I just want to like throw down sort of what I want to do for this disc. So yeah, I'll get a nice. That's not the right size. That's the right size. And then I'll just basically. I know that I want it to be tri-blade, so I'll break it down into 3. Why is this chugging so? Oh, you know what? That's because I can't believe how slow this app's performing. Well, this is going to make it not good to use this software because that's how slow this is. You know what? Let's figure all this out in ZBrush. This will actually be better. We'll just do it in ZBrush. Yeah, this is going to be prohibitively slow. Screw this. Nope. Screw that. Too many applications running. Speaking of which, I can close up Painter. Okay. Let's do a fresh one. Here's a great example, actually. These dog tag props. That's probably a 15, not even. That's like a 5-minute Z-modeler sculpt. And then drop some creases on it, and then it's in game, and that's like what ends up being our dog tag for sharing all of our tags and titles and stuff like that. That's like in-game finished, textured, UV'd in less than an hour. That's kind of what we talk about when we say like rapid content development. I know I have a default disk in here somewhere. Let me grab my. Is it the hologram that has it? No, that's not it. Sorry guys. I want to find my default sort of starting place. Here, I know I have it. Here it is. Base ring. Okay. Delete other. Okay. So delete other. That's my sort of base starting point. Yeah, Clip Studio it does have similar symmetry options, and it's awesome. I love Clip Studio. It's my favorite illustration package. Yeah, so ZBrush for everything. That's the call. In fact, I think we can actually do something pretty cool here. I'm a big fan of this. I'm going to show this workflow, even though I probably won't use this. I'm not wild about this current image. But why don't we do this? I'm going to do a really nifty little thing that I love with the shadow box tool. Let me save this off. I'm going to grab this little beta here, save it off to maps, jammers, alphas. Okay, beta 128. So I've saved off this texture, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up Shadowbox, which is, if you haven't used Shadowbox in ZBrush, it is a wonderful tool. Let's do like a maybe 512 Shadowbox. Okay, what this allows me to do is, if it takes the mask and turns it into geometry. So, what have I done? Do I have radial symmetry on? Yes, I do. That'll do it. So as you can see, I've drawn those boxes, and that creates some geo for me. When you're talking about base mesh generation, especially at this stage, it's so much about speed that it's really kind of priceless to have a tool that can do this kind of thing for me so fast. So I got a nice decent resolution on my shadow box there. Let me import a texture to load up. Actually, let me try it as an alpha. So I've just downloaded this beta. I'm loading this up now. Boom. Oh, there's some artifacts there. Damn it. Of course there would be. Clever. Yeah, so that's actually HeckOps, a really cool part of this. And let me fire up Photoshop real quick to do some really quick massaging of this alpha I just downloaded. I'll just paint over real quick and I'll get myself a nice little alpha here. Hopefully Photoshop performs a little bit faster. Let's do 1K, why not? Let's live on the edge here. That's not the right one. Okay. Alright, so now we're in business here. That's a nifty little beta. I don't mind that. You know, even with that blurred edge, I kind of don't mind that at all. I can always sharpen my mask in ZBrush anyway. So why don't we start here? Why don't we take that? Save as. I know that ZBrush tends to play nicer with PSD, which is actually great because I like to keep it in PSD anyway. So I will throw this into my alphas folder, beta.psd. Now in ZBrush, I will go to my alpha, import, beta.psd. Oh, you know, I think I blew it again. I'm so good at blowing it. Yep, did it wrong. I don't think it's going to work actually, it'll work okay. So, here we go. There's my beta. It's going to be inverted, of course, but I can invert my mask. Are those not uniform somehow? Seems to me that I need to rasterize this. And I'll even do a color fill just to make sure that everything is color fill with black 20. And then I'll do a white fill behind it. Oop. So I'm going to fill the background with white. Ah, that's what there's, those little stripes right there. So make a magic wand of that. First, delete all that. There we go. And it's a little choppy, but that's not going to matter. And you'll see why it doesn't matter to me right now. Because I'm going to be able to... this is going to turn into Geo anyway. And that Geo is going to need to get polished anyway. Because... it's... yeah. You know, that's going to be something I need to polish anyway after the fact. So let's start here. And then actually, I want to invert this, I think. Because I think I want to be black to white in ZBrush, if I'm not mistaken. So there we go. Let's try that. Let's import it again. Here's our beta. Let's start over here. Mask pen, control click the new beta. Yeah, there we go. Now we're talking. So, I haven't actually used this in quite some time. That seems to be working okay. So, there's my big beta. Oh, whoops. I'll take it off, do like a decent thickness for me. Let's say right there. Yeah, that should do. If anything, I'm going to want to edit this in post anyway. And I kind of don't like how that geo rounds off at the bottom, so I'll probably clip that there. There. That's a nice little beta. I think I'll probably, for the purposes, I know this is going to end up going into a circle. It's going to be the center of the disk. So that should do it. Okay, so now turn off shadow box, and here's this nice piece of geo. Now, dealing with artifacts is a big part of this, but of course, we have the wonderful Z remesher and Z remodeler. So what I like to do at this point is clip curve. Clip curve is a wonderful tool for just like flattening out edges like that. So I'll clip both sides of this. Clip off that tail end right there, and we can address these like artifacts there after the fact. For now, I'm just excited that I have decent geo along these edges. And as a matter of fact, I have decent polygroups as well already. Yeah, so now that I have polygroups here, what I like to do is I'll bring up my geometry subpalette, keep groups, and then take it down, say, let's just say 2K. See how that does. So keep groups is it's different than freeze groups. Freeze groups will like sort of keep the group borders basically identical to geo, whereas keep groups, and correct me if I'm wrong here, ZBrush guys, keep groups sort of allows the border to change and allows the geometry to be more flexible, but will try to overall maintain the shape. And so this is a much faster way to sort of get low poly geo but maintain curved hard edges in the way that I kind of set up for this piece here. So it's got about 500,000 polys to crunch. I probably could have taken the resolution down a little bit on that shadow box, but you know, the good news is that once you start getting when you get into low resolution geometry, polishing and creasing is a lot more friendly, and those artifacts basically clean themselves out. What is with these birds chirping? Let's get a little. There you go, a little Bach. Let's answer the question what this is doing. Try to adhere to the build the high res on the game res topo when you're working conceptually. Organic, jewel intensive character, any Dynamesh parts in together. Yeah, I think Retopo and that Dylan. I think I do this with characters a lot. There's just no way to stay low to high with creasing. And I think if you're doing the kind of like, if I was going to do like a dragon coiled around like a pendant, right? I would do all of that in Dynamesh and Retopo. The thing that you might want to think about though is using Z-Remesher as a part of that flow, because what I'm finding more and more is that if I do a good job with my Z-Remesh curves and I draw the non-cycle curve lines out, I can get so close to what I'm after from just that alone. So yeah, if you also said Z-Remesh hard surface meshes. I must have misspoke there. If I have a hard surface mesh, I don't really Z-Remesh all that much. Let's see how this thing did. That did not hold up well. Let's do a. Oh, you know what? That's why I've got those little. Here's what we're gonna do. I had a bad bake as a result of that stacked polygroups right there. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna Dynamesh this thing. That's a decent amount of geo right there. Actually, that's kind of nice. Let's see if I can polish by. And then what I like to do is these brushes to my right are all the sort of the geometry affecting brushes. Geometry affecting, they all affect geometry, but these sort of like the clip and trim and visibility brushes, like they're all about masking and slicing up and dicing up. Like if I wanted to dice this bit off, you know, and like do something specific there, that's where all these brushes to my right are the ones where I kind of like, you know, do all that stuff with. So trim curve is a great brush for this. These things are, let me group visible, make them all one poly group, and then I'm just going to trim this down. And that way, oh shit, that's not going to work either. If I clip curve, forgot about that, can't trim that out because it's got holes in it. And I got a little bit cleaner geo to work with. Maybe this will work a little bit nicer for me. There we go, that did it. So all that was there. Get one more on this edge. Group by normals. If I take it down a little bit more. There we go. See, like that part of it's kind of important. Like just being able to sort of find out where you're breaking or what I'm messing up there and find out why not. Now I've gotten to a place where I have some pretty decent poly groups here, and it's very easy to sort of just come in here, clean up the ones that are mixed up. Group, oh shit, oops. Group visible. Come down here, select rectangle. Group visible. I think I'd actually like this one to remain its own polygroup for now, because I think I want to keep that the way it is. Yeah, so decent polygroups here, crease polygroups, polish by groups. There we go. Some nice edges there. Decent geometry. And now let's see if I can Z-remesh this thing. the good keep groups on it. There you go. That's getting better already. It's not going to take very much for me to get this to a point where the geo. There's a little bit of an issue right there. Ah, see that little face, those little faces right there. That, hmm. Yeah, smooth by poly is actually what I did. Polished by groups is over here. That's what I was clicking. If I ever am moving a little bit too quick, let me know. But yeah, you nailed. That's exactly what I was doing. The problem I'm finding is that I actually have a stray poly group over here. The perils of a procedural workflow is that if there is a hurdle, it's gonna snag you. Okay. All right, let's try that again. I know it's in there. There it is. Those little guys right there. Let's try this. This is Dynamesh again. No, that didn't do it. This might be a candidate for welding close points. No, I didn't do it either. Well, there seems to be no way around this. I am just going to smooth that out. Group visible. Try that. Alright, let's try this one more time here. Clip curve. Now that curve should be all green. If I Dynamesh here. Okay. Try to zero mesh. Yeah, that does us. Ugh, there's more bad geo. Well, I'm going to run this through one more time. Group visible. Delete lower. Got about 3,000. Clip curve. Clip curve. Curve. And clip curve. Let's see if this thing does it for us. Sharp angles with Z remesh that's the keep groups function I was talking about. Oh wow, I kind of did a really impressive job there. So yeah, that's the keep groups thing. So if I'll show you real quick, it's over here under Z remesh, keep groups. That's what's going to, if you have edge geo that is a different poly group, it's going to allow you to do something different than freeze groups. Freeze groups like maintains the border location exactly, and that's perfect for other situations. But for this situation, this is actually keep groups is a lot more helpful. You know what? This is actually a pretty nice piece of geo here now. Let's see how ZRemesher handles this. Of course, we have no groups for it to worry about, and it's got about 250,000, so it's got a little bit more work to do. Yeah, and yeah, I save constantly. You'll see I hit the number 9 is my quick save. I think it is for everybody, I'm not sure. Visible. I use for retopo. I tend to just use Maya now. Maya has the really exciting workflow with their new what's he? They have the new modeling toolkit, and if you make a live mesh, I'll do a decimation here in ZBrush, shoot it over to Maya, shoot over my low poly, like I'll shoot over a Z remesh, for example, and then I'll make the live mesh the decimated one, and I'll start cutting polys off or inserting edge loops, and I'll start building out the low poly from there. So yeah, we are going to troubleshoot this a little bit because I am unable to generate the geo I want right now. No, I shouldn't have done that. Yeah. Let's try to take it down to about 20,000. That'll give something a little bit more workable. So I'm just trying to get this down to a decent place. But yeah, I've used Topo Gun. That's a really good remodeling package. It does a decent job of a little too ominous, this music. There we go. Remeshing aborted. There is something about this geo that CMOS just does not like. Let's see here. What are my options at this point? Let me duplicate this. So I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to go back into Shadowbox. Take my resolution down. Resolution is a little bit high, so let's go to 256. So, I think a little bit more bubbly of a surface, that might help us. Let's try this. The main thing I would do is if these holes weren't here, I would trim this, and a nice trim curve. No, there we go, crash. A nice trim curve generates new polys for me. Well, yes, you can crease before remeshing, and I don't think it's preserved though. That's actually a good question. I think a Dynamesh. So you can take this down with Dynamesh here. Okay, that's down to some decent geometry. Looks like I found a few weird corners there, so that's good. And then what I can do actually, you know, let's just try this. When in doubt, use the old-fashioned methods. I just Control W, select some region of the mesh, just get the end of the faces there, Control W, and I've built myself some nice groups by just remeshing these edges here. Let's see if I polish by groups how that does. A few iterations of that. Kind of flat, but not bad. Now I think Z-Mesher would hopefully be a little friendly to us right now. Do I use QMesh in my workflow? Absolutely. Yeah, I use a lot of... Oh wait, are you talking about QMesh or Z-Modeler? QMesh is this thing over here. It's the... This, are you talking about the Q-grid stuff down here? Yeah, just clarify more, Var, what you're asking about. Okay, at long last, I think we have a decent little B there. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Reasonably small geo. And of course, I can do a lot of polishing to take that down even more. Maybe a little inflate to bulge it back out. Increase, actually, I'm going to increase all. groups. Actually, I like it better this way. Okay. So we got like 5,000 points here. You know, decent sized shape. I'll probably want to do more with this shape. I'm not really wild about it. There's probably too many. There's a little bit too much curvature, and I want hard edges on this side and curvature on these sides. So that in itself is going to make things difficult for these procedural tools. But at the end of the day, I can come in here. These edge loops all go around. So if I'm concerned about topology and poly count, I just eliminated 1,000 points off of this just by doing a little bit of QModeler. Just tapping these out is going to make these edges a lot more friendly. Yeah, why not? And then one thing I like to do for something like this is, yeah, see, that's going to deform nicely into that. So if anything, I'll build up a little bit of geometry in these areas, but I'll do that with higher resolution, so it'll fill it up. So yeah, yeah, QGrid. You know, QGrid is something I just started kind of digesting a little bit. It's awesome. What QGrid basically does for me is, like, when I do dynamic subdivision, I think lower poly props might be better to show this. Sorry for getting sidetracked here, guys. I'm actually really wild about this feature. You know, dynamic subdivision right there. If you press D, you get dynamic subdivision. It's like what's going to look like if you subdivide. That's a relatively new feature, and it enables you to sort of, if you're doing something cute where you want to, you know, avoid this situation, right? QGrid does an amazing job of, like, maintaining those things along the divide. So, like, you can then start messing with coverage, and you can do bevels or chamfers, and then boom, like, there's my high poly geo right there. So I didn't even have to mess with the top hole. Sorry, Cerebral, I'm not sure what you're referring to there, but I want to get back to the beta. But yeah, so what we're talking about here with the Q mesh and the QGrid thing, it, like, knows how to maintain geo without you having to put in supporting edge loops. Let me get some. Let me make sure this thing's on shuffle. Yeah. So even though I didn't go into full, you know, it'll kind of cause those issues there, but you know, you can of course, you know, play with that a little bit more and, like, back it off a little bit, and you can chamfer versus bevel. You can decide how much smooth you want. It does an amazing job of getting you, like, procedural results right away. I don't use it as much because since I got to focus, if you see the beginning of the stream, since I need to focus so much on what I'm doing with the low resolution and the creased edges and the UV islands anyway, I kind of have that stuff all built in already. But yeah, I've been messing with it and I like it a lot, and I expect that it'll be a pretty, you know, permanent part of my workflow, because that in itself, doing that right there, is really cool. And it, especially when you're talking about projecting high resolution details on the low resolution game meshes, that's a very, very powerful thing. So back to this. Okay. So I'm in a pretty good place with this. I'm definitely gonna need to polish this up a little bit more, but in the meantime, like, I think this is fine for the purposes I need it for. So what I'll do now, because I want this thing to be symmetrical in the, I believe this is Z. This is the Z axis. So I will unify in Z. Nope, wrong axis. Y. Oh shit! I didn't accidentally did a Z remesh there. Let's just unify in X, Y, Z, and see if I can unify in Y. I'm not sure why that would cause extra geo there. My main thing I want this to do, I want this to be symmetrical in Y so I can center it, but I think it's actually better if I just keep it unified. Yeah, let's just stay with that. So this is unify, basically puts it all in like in a unit square. Edges loops inside the top of the B. Ah, yes, thank you. That's what you're talking about. Thank you so much. I'll keep that one supporting edge there. These can all go. And there's a nice little, and those arcs to each other. Thank you, appreciate that. So yeah, I took it down another 1,000. So now it's at 3,000 active points. It's not bad. And obviously there's a lot more in here that can go. But there's a number of ways now I can bring this into the disk. Let's see, where's my disk here? Okay, so it's actually already centered, so that's not bad. So what I'm kind of envisioning, what I was going to sketch out was basically like I would do a tri-blade disc that had grips made of marble, maybe sort of metal cuffs around those grips, and probably like some cool connectors along those metal grips that are, have place for emissive light. For projecting maps, if you mean baking, I use Substance, but I'm going to try and get this mesh all the way into game today without using anything besides ZBrush. So, looks like I'm up at 90 minutes now. I'm supposed to go to 2. We'll see if I go over. If the ZBrush guys don't mind, I'll go over. Otherwise, I'll just, I'll build this thing and see how far we get and pick up on the next time. But the way I'm kind of picturing it, this would be a little bit more centered here. And then I would take this here and start working with some radial symmetry. Radial symmetry is very useful. For what I do for these discs, we do quad grip discs, tri grip discs. I've got some that are actually just dual grip. So to that end, I'll just show you how you. It's important that you'll notice that on the isosceles triangle, there are even this geo has edge loops on the thirds. So that means every 360 divided by 3, every 120 degrees, it has an edge loop. That's because my subdivisions were divisible by 3. And I'd like to keep them divisible by 3 and 4. So I tend to do, because if I want to go and do radial count of 4, then it's important to me that every, 360 divided by 4, every 100, I know that's divisible by 4. I just don't know what it is right now off the top of my head. That's also going to have an edge loop there. So like this base mesh is divisible by 3 and 4 for the purposes of making sure that I can retain symmetry when I do quad or tri-blade discs. So now that I'm here, let's paint out some grips. So I'm going to stay in Z modeler for pretty much all of this. You'll notice. I think my visibility for growing by X. So a good trick there is to mask some stuff out and then Control Shift A, X, and I believe Z do different visibility. And those are very, very useful. I actually just learned that recently. Okay, so that's about the size of the grips I want. And then I've got radial symmetry on. Let's do it by group visible. Let's make these grips one polygroup. Q mesh by polygroup. Did I blow this? Oh, whoops. Q mesh by polygroup all. Bring those in a little bit. These will be nice little connectors. And I think what I'm kind of envisioning is like it's going to have little windows here where we're going to have little kind of see-through stuff. And then I will do insert multiple edge loops because I want those to be right on the middle. In fact, I'll probably just do a third there and a third there. And I want this to be a sort of buttress. So this will be QMesh poly loop. Poly loop is going to wrap around all the geo there. And like that, if I hold shift, it becomes a move operation. So I'll hold shift, drag that out, and I'll tap it to do the same thing here. I think if I have to tap it, no shit, sorry. Do that, I actually don't know. Is there a way to do this? I want to do the tap. ZBrush guys, help me out here. I want to do the same. I want to do like the tap to redo the same move I just did, but like make it a move operation. I guess I would have to go to another option here. Maybe it's a move. No. Yeah. Not sure how that's done actually. Well, there's a better way to do this. Let me just poly group this poly loop. If you want to change your poly, because you'll notice if I just tap this, it's gonna be the same one. But if I want to change that, I can tap it and press Alt. After I tap, press Alt, and it'll set me a new poly, set me up with a new poly group. This is all done with a pen on a stylus. Oh, brush size lower. That's a good call. Let's try that while we're here. Okay, let's go back to QMesh, poly loop. Oh, no, maybe it's brush size bigger. I know there's a way to like. I think brush size bigger will prevent it from clipping right there. I think brush size smaller makes it clip a little bit earlier. Yeah, see how quickly it snapped? But snapping's not really my issue. It's like I guess snapping is the issue on the second one. I think I can disable snap anyway. Is that a traction? Is that what that is? Nope. That's a step size. Let's try that. There we go. Step size. Oop, did I go too far? Did I break it? Okay, let's try this just for the old shiggles. Yeah, can't do that. I don't know why. I'll have to dig into that one later. This is a custom disc for our game Disc Jam. Jetabex. We have some other ones here. So I'm just basically building a disc for our beta users that has where was I? That has the Greek letter B in it. And what I basically envision is that this would be like a marble and gold sort of, Greek architecture material with a gold beta that spins in the middle. So that being said, I'm going to need to build some supporting geo for that. Okay, so there's that. There's this. I've got my poly groups. I'm in radial symmetry still. So let's build up. Okay, polygroup all. That should be everything we need to get this bad boy where we want it. Yeah, nice. Okay, so that's happened all over the thing. It has. I'm gonna have my lights right there. And actually, now that I'm looking at this, I'm realizing that I don't quite love that this is a tri-disc because it's I want there to be kind of supporting geo for the B. So I think what I'm going to end up doing, let's scale this down and put this on a kind of inner plate. And the inner plate will be maybe made of like some kind of silvery metal, and the B will be sort of, engraved kind of like jewelry inside of that. So let's do that there, and then what we can do is grab ourselves a nice new cylinder. So here's what I was talking about before when I was talking about being divisible by 4 and 3. I would keep this at 36 because 3 times 4 is 12. Then if I multiply by 12, I know that I'm going to always have a divisible by 3 and divisible by 6, meaning there's going to be an edge loop on all 4 quadrants as well as all of the 3 poles. So you can divide by 90 degrees, or you can divide by 120. So there we go. I don't really need any of the vertical geometry. That's perfect. Let I'm not going to mess with the size right here. I don't really care to. Make polymesh 3D. Jump back over to the disk. Append my new polymesh 3D. And boom, there we go. Now I got some geo to be the plating for this disk. Oops, my document's a little bit small all of a sudden. Let's do a new document of window size. Nope. Drag that back out. There we go. Now we are back in business. Okay. Now what I'll probably do with this is just size it up to encapsulate that B. Yeah. And then get to Z symmetry. Push it back down. Actually, probably want to grow this thing out a little bit. You mirror and weld this in Z. If you mirror and weld this in Z, my axes are all messed up here. So I guess this is a Y. I must have this way. That's why. This isn't. My orientations are all afoul. Mirror and weld in Y will give me a nice little geo right there in the middle to draw out from. And I can pull this out, make sure it has a nice pop off that surface. And then what I like to do is I like to keep the grips where someone's hands could reasonably fit. So like our characters will grip around that kind of ledge there. So from here, let's go ahead and put, because I have, and this is a good thing too, because I know that this is going to be exactly on the third, every 120 degrees, I can then do some interesting stuff with insert meshes. Because I can put a point here. Now that I've created that multiple edge loop, I know this is exactly the point I'm going to want for some fresh new geo. So if I do brush insert cylinder, for example, if I grab that out, that's going to be exactly where I want it to go, and I don't need to do anything clever. It's just there. Looks like I don't have Z radial symmetry on anymore. Let's get back to radial symmetry. Radial and Y. Yep. Radial count of 3. There we go. So now, I draw this out here. What just happened? That's bizarre. I know that's going to be that connector right there. So I can draw this out here. And then now I have a nice parallel, not parallel, but you get me. It's balanced to the place where I want it to be. And then I have my connection to sort of the emissive light handles. So what I'll probably end up doing is I'll make those little bits and bobs will be, this will be kind of like an emissive sort of power source. This will be like connecting to this that has like emissive flickering light. That'll be sort of the little light that comes out here. And then these sort of metal rings will be like a gold grip, or like a gold sort of like coil to reach into the grips here, which are going to be metal. Again, very, very fictional. This would never fly in real life, but you know the point is just having fun, trying to make something that looks a little bit cool. Split unmasked points to separate the edges there of that. And while I'm here, why don't I do a little bit of support looping here. Let's do a single edge loop right there. And then I'm going to put this inset even further. I wonder if I like that or not. I kind of like the idea of the coils reaching to the B. If I cut that off there and put that to there, that might look strange, but for now, let's give it a shot. Let me delete these edge loops. I'll turn off radial symmetry. And I'm going to grab that little bit, pull it down. I'll probably do this one via Z modeler. Groups by normals is a good way to do this. And then I can just grab that. Yeah, Z modeler to Z modeler. Let's do it by this way. Control click. There we go. So what I did there is just control click the polygroup, and if you control click with the polygroup with the move tool selected, that'll isolate the other things. I'm not sure if I like this or not, because the main thing is I'm not sure if I like how it reads that the B is, you know, got these things piped into it. But who knows? Let's leave it like that for now. If anything, I will clip these off and they'll connect sort of to the inner cylinder, and that'll be that. But for now, let's try to make them like little lights that kind of maybe connect to. Maybe they charge up to the B and make the B like sort of emissive in its own way. Activate Y symmetry. Let's bring that in a little bit further. B was out a little bit too far. There we go. Okay. So beyond that, let's get these. I like to make a little bit of a bevel here. It's a little bit too hard edge for my liking. And then one tap click for the other edge. Now they've been matched all the way across. So our grips are all kind of, most of our grips are this round because our characters' hands are all like the main thing about games is that when you do a lot of different characters, you're gonna have standards you have to establish. So one of our standards is like for the disc to look normal in someone's hand. We got to keep these discs relatively the same size. I'd like to be more creative and say maybe like, I don't know. Maybe I separate these out and do something cute with them where I balloon them out a little bit more. Why don't we try that? Let's separate this. Select lasso to just separate that. Oh, alternatively, I can just go to I have a hotkey for this, but I actually remapped it before I learned these tools existed. So one thing that's helpful is these visibility tools are like kind of priceless. I will shrink visibility. Yeah, that's what I needed to do there. And there's a hotkey for that, but I unbound it on accident. I think that's my undo now. But like grow visibility is this, and that does the entire mesh. Grow visibility by 1 is Control-Shift-X. That grows it by 1. So these are very kind of useful because what it lets you do is kind of get to a point where I'll group these as visible and have these grips. I can now get a little cute with them. Can't quite decide how I want to shape these out. I feel like it'd be cooler if they were just, I have an idea. I want to like make this region a little bit more rounded. So let's take 3 faces on each side. There we go. I want to see if I can't pop these out in a way that makes sense. A lot of experimentation right now, guys. Sorry, I have no real plan here other than to just try some things. Oops. Scale about the polygon center. Kind of taper that down a little bit. Nah, I didn't really do what I wanted to do. I think maybe the thing to do is to separate those out. In the interest of time, I won't go into all this now. I'll probably do this another pass. But I'll probably separate those out and then separate it from the center coil, and I'll be a lot more free to do that, Let me try to catch up with the chat here real quick. Okay, yeah, so looks like there's no specific questions. Yeah. So, real quick here, I'll show you what I mean when I talked earlier about our crease workflow. Group by normal was at 45. It's about right. Crease polygroups. There's bound to be some deformation issues here and there. These are all one polygroup, and I think I'd probably like these to crease. So I will crease by edge loop partial. Not bad, not bad. Most of the way there. If you don't have diagonal supporting geo right there, you'll get these little pinches. But I find that it's just quicker just to like H-polish those out in post. So yeah, that's not a bad poly there. I think for this one, oops, what have I just done? Did I just accidentally crease that? I think I did. Yeah, there we go. Accidentally creased that piece. Okay, that's fine for the grips. I'm running out of time here, so I'll just kind of finish it up as quick as I can, and we'll get it into the game engine. Let's do a nice bevel right here. Nice bevel right there. Bevel here. Ooh, I'm realizing right now this piece is not mirrored across Y. Do a quick mirror and weld. Oops. Do a quick mirror and Y, then a mirror and weld. I wanted to get that same little inset on both sides. It's going to be reverse on this side, I'm realizing, so I'll probably flip that around and do separate geo for it, but for now, don't really mind all that much. It also feels a little heavily weighted to one side. I think the side with the stem is a little too weighted. So let's grab this, move it over to the side here. That's a little bit more friendly. I like that better. So yeah, this is a very rough disc. I would do a lot more dressing up, but since we're not going to go in the texturing process anyway, this is some decently rough geo. I got some nice polygons here that I can crease. Oops. That's a decent result out of that. And this middle piece is basically the only one left. I really want to kind of see if I can't do more with. I smooth that out there. Crease polygons, what's that look like? Yeah, that's not bad. Polish by groups I'm not wild about right now. It's not really doing what I want it to. Let's do a little bit of inflating on that little inside bit. Polish by groups one more time. I'm actually not that upset with it. That's actually a pretty decent procedural result. Deformation holds pretty nicely when I do a quick divide. Yeah, I'm going to flip the other side. The B over here, I'm going to cut it in half and flip it from over here. And actually, what's more likely to do, just for the sake of keeping, you know, the thing fast and poly count down and like giving myself more texture resolution, since it is symmetrical in these kind of thirds, I'll probably only texture 1/3 of this. That'll allow me to put as much texture resolution as possible for the 512 or 1K map I'm going to allow myself to have. And then over here, I'll probably just split that geo in half and then flip it in post. So like I'll take my low poly game resolution mesh, I'll delete all these faces and just flip it on the other side and do that all after I've got some texture on it. But in the interest of just kind of showing you, let's drop some color on this now. Select rectangle. Let's do a nice material fill. Let's do just a we're not gonna be able to do metalness without getting in a texture package. We're limited how much our mats are gonna do for us. But I think it couldn't hurt to just do some skin shading on all of these and build a nice kind of just loud color. So I'm gonna do skin shader. Let's fill these grips. Marble. Google some references of marble. Some nice white with some ribbing in it. Yeah, so here's some images of marble. So it's like if I do white as a base, I can maybe do some noise, ZBrush noise, surface noise. Maybe get kind of cute with that. All right, so let's do a nice. Actually, let's do a bright white. Actually, and I wanted these to be gold. Let's make these a nice yellowish, goldish yellow. Yep. I'll keep these at a nice blue emissive. Speaking of which, let's delete some of this geo. We're not going to need it. Insert. radial symmetry, so I can just delete these once. Just pop this geo out of here, it's not going to be needed. And then what I'll do here is these are going to be kind of like a neon blue, because they're going to be kind of a light blue light. So I'll just fill up kind of a saturated blue light here for the purposes of visualization. That's pretty solid. Yeah, see, I'm trying to see what part's going to glow. Like, if it's the beta going to glow, I was going to have these little things be the emissive lights, as well as this face here. But maybe the beta, I wanted the beta to be gold, because that's like the thing that's like the highest. It's like, oh, the beta, you're a beta tester. But you know, once I get into texturing, these things tend to change a lot. I just want to try and find something that I can get into game to kind of show you guys how quickly this stuff stands out. That's a bit of a better blue. Okay, what else do we want to do? Let's make this plate also. Like this. It's group visible there. Auto group. Oops. Auto groups. Let's hide that one. I want to make this all one material. Let's group visible there. And then what I'll do is pull this out, unhide the rest. This is actually a pretty helpful little trick. I want this to be the same gold color. So I'll click on the color, drag it over to the gold. It'll pick that color. And it's important that it won't pick the color of the pixel on screen. It'll pick the color of the geometry. That's important because other packages don't do that. They'll pick whatever color they see. I really like that. That picks the exact color that's on those faces. So I want that to be the gold. And then when I shift my view to here, I want this to be like kind of a metal-y kind of silver. And then the B in the middle, I want to be the same gold as these. So what this is basically now is like a texture atlas. It's not so much going to be representative of what the final look's going to be. I can take these poly paints, and with the poly paint, I can decide where, with like an ID map, I can decide via like a clown pass, I can decide in my texture map where things should go based on where these colors are right now when I'm doing like the final texturing phase. Last thing I want to do is I want to make these little things into lights. So let's go to this. Let me grab these. And then, yeah, that's good. And then I'll just grab the same color that's going to represent the light. Fill those. Okay. And I'm not too worried about these little artifacts right here, those little blurs right now, because those are all easy to clean out later on. So, pretty happy with this. On Earth. Oh, this is the extra geo that I had. Let's delete that. So now the thing is, now that this is all, so like I said, this is all low poly geo right now. This is all game ready. This is 2,000 points. You know, however many, sorry, this is 6,000 points. Well within our budget. So now that I have that ready to rock a little bit, if I subdivide, that's a decent deformation. Subdivide, decent deformation. Subdivide, decent deformation. I'm actually going to probably take this crease off because there's a nice bevel there already. It'll probably do a better deformation if that crease isn't there anyway. Boop, boop. Yeah, that's much cleaner, I think. Yeah, that's much better. Okay, so decent deformation there, and these cylinders are not capped. Crease polygroup. Now they are, so they'll hold their geometry. Now there's a few different ways we can go about this. I think what I'll probably end up doing, and just be a little bit pacey and wasteful, I only got about 5 minutes left, and I'll probably go over by about 10 to 15. I think what I'll probably do is just do a quick merge visible right now. Oh, so I have my subtool pop-up menu. Merge visible. I don't have UVs on it yet, so I don't need to keep UVs. Hop over here to my visible one, and then, oops, there's that little poly group right there. Okay. Now with this, I can Z plugin, UV master, UV by poly groups. I don't really mind symmetry mattering all that much. Let's unwrap this whole thing. Error occurred during the process. That's unfortunate. I'm not used to seeing that. Let's see if we do it by bit by bit. If whenever I see the word error, I tend to quick save. Okay, got that one unwrapped. Got that one unwrapped. Got that one unwrapped. Got that one unwrapped. Alright, they all unwrapped individually just fine. The merge one didn't unwrap for some reason. So I think what I'll do now is I'll probably just do a quick GoZ on these so I can pack the UVs as separate. Oh, you know what? Let me take that back. I'm trying to stay in ZBrush for all of it. That's my goal here. Let me try merging visible again. Subtools, merge visible, keep UVs. If you click that, it'll enable UVs in the merge. That way they'll all retain their UV. Now if I've done this, they all have UVs already. Let's see what flattening does. Okay, they're all obviously overlapping. Unflatten. I'll send that over to Maya as one mesh. And typically what I'll do is, now's the time when I would go through and I just bake down the nano array, then texture on low poly. Oh, you guys are having a whole combo here missing out on. Okay. Just for real quick. You guys will see the texture window in a minute here. I'll grab all that. Polygons, layout. That's more than fine for now. Send it back into ZBrush. Okay. So we got our new UVs on our geo here. And I think we're ready to rock. Oh, you know what, as a matter of fact, my goal here was to... So what I want to do is build the high res right now, and I would do different naming conventions, and I would have I would split them out so that the high and low were separate, and I could put them off in the baking package. What I'm going to do now is just give myself some subdivisions to the point where I can't see any of those curves. There we go. So I'll usually subdivide 2 or 3 times. And then let's do one more. Increase, uncrease all. And then I'll get some nice little bevels in there. And that's about 2 million. For here, I will do... Matter of fact, it's probably going to be best for me if I just keep that lit. Skin shaded. Fill object with him. Let's see if I can't clean out those little edges. Fill object. RGB, fill object. Just getting that little overspill I wanted to clean out. So now I have a high poly and a low poly, and they have UVs. But my UVs are still in the wrong place. So I think probably the best thing's going to be if I just go through this. Divide, divide. Let's turn off all of them. Make sure I can see the geo well enough. Get one division. Crease, uncrease all. 2 division, 3 division. That way I'll have a nice edge. But I'm not going to worry about that. Yeah, that's better. That's a decent. And what I'll do is in the texturing package, I start putting in rocky, grain, and gold and stuff like that. I'm at 2 minutes. I'm at 2 o'clock right now, by the way. I was going to throw this in game in a minute here, so I don't know if the ZBrush guys mind if I go over. Let me know, mods, if you want me to come back to this at a later date, but I can continue to, you know. Yeah, substance is great for being lazy with UVs, exactly. And you do notice some weirdness, but you can usually address those. Marmoset's new baker has like a paint workflow. You can paint out the artifacts by doing 2 bakes and then paint between them. It's pretty sweet. Anyway, I'm gonna keep going. Let me know if you want me to call it though, ZBrush. Anyway, okay. So there's a nice high poly there for the B. Yeah, pretty happy with this. Let's do 3, uncrease all, and get a nice little edge in there. Actually, probably do 4 for uncrease all. One more subdivision. Now I'll uncrease all. There we go. Those little bevels are a little bit cuter now. Up to 2 million. Okay, and then this one here, these little sort of energy bars, so to speak. They're already creased, so I'll just keep them going. I don't need to worry about much about them. Okay, so everything has UVs and everything has high res. Now I can send each of these into Maya quickly. I'll do a quick layout, procedural UV layout. There's one. There's another. There's my third, and it looks like I have some stray faces there, because it looks like I've got some stray, oh, yes I do, sure enough I do. I'm not going to deal with that for now, but I can clean those up easy enough later on. You know what, let's just clean them up. We're here, we're on the channel, we got time. Crease, group by normals, let's make that about 60. That'll give us 3 groups like I wanted. Z plugin, let me save real quick, because I'm liking what I got so far. I just heard a terrible noise. Oh, that's not a crash, that's an email. Oof. The crash noise and the email noise are the same noise. Okay, I've already got my high poly. I've already got my bevels, I've got my UVs, Z plugin, sorry for the sidetrack there. Let's unwrap that. New UVs, send that over. All those issues are fixed now. That's just fine. Final piece of the puzzle, and I would delete these faces that don't exist. They're not really important because they're not shown, but you know, in the interest of keeping geometry, I actually like them better there because they hold the geometry when they're there. Okay, those also have been UV'd already. Let's send those over. Those could probably weld those edges, but I'll grab all these, polygon, do a quick layout, scheduling the world geo. There we go, rock and roll. Send these back into Geo one at a time. There's that. There's this. Gozy. Apology, the mesh has not changed. Let's delete that resolution details. Oh! Shoot. What have I done? I think... Did I have duplicate of these for some reason? Oh, I see what's happened here. Because these are named the same. Keep your naming conventions, guys, because if you don't pay attention to naming, you get busted. Call this light coil. Because they were named the same thing, ZBrush got confused, as it would, or Gozy got confused, as it should. Let's bring the light coil over. Let's bring the center plate over. And the base ring. Okay, those are all the same. Let's do that one more time. Polygons. Layout. Go back to ZBrush. So I just sent all four back at the same time. I think I might actually. Did I name this correctly for the send back one? No, I did not. Okay, whatever. Light coil is the one I just changed the name of. This one has UVs. Light coil. Now, here is. This music is killing me right now, actually. Why not? A little patriotic music. There's a Mozart on here. Beethoven, maybe. It's just a sad trumpet in a dead hallway. Sorry, let me get a little better music here. Mailer. That's fine. Nice and relaxing. Okay, so all these have UV, and they all have polypaint. The B is missing material, so I'll switch back to skin shade. Go to material, fill the object with that material. And I lost my light coil color, so let's go to here. Pick a nice kind of muted but neon, maybe a little more saturated. There we go. Ah! Cripes. MRGB. Fill object. There we go. Okay. So now we kind of have everything we need for a game rush. Thanks for stopping by, Shane. Alright, so we have everything here. We have high-res detail. We go to all high. So now, two things. Typically I would do this externally, but you can do it all right here in ZBrush. So let's generate some textures. New texture, create from polypaint. So that's going to fill all this geo. And I'm wondering, the B, does the B not have color on it? Yeah, it does. For some reason, is the B not? Send that B back over. I think the B does not have its UVs. I might not have sent it back over from Maya. Let's try to flatten it. Oh, duh. It's not one. I'm an idiot. Okay, so I have all this high resolution detail, right? Let's do a few things here, just to make sure this all works according to plan. Let's take them all low and combine that. Let's do a merge visible on that. Now I'll append our new visible low. Rename disk low, right? Make that invisible. Now let's take it all high. This should be no subdivisions, or max subdivision there. Now let's take this. Let's do all high for the rest of them. So now the rest of these are all going to be high resolution. Let's merge visible again. Yeah, I think this will work. Although I'm wondering. Let's see. Let's experiment here. Subtool, merge visible. Let's append our high. Name disk high. Now I've actually not done this workflow in a really long time, so we'll see how we do without. We'll see how we do. But what I want to do is basically have these all be combined, and then generate. Let's go into solo mode, and then build a texture map out of my polypaint. I think because of how I have this set up, that might have some bleed over there. And looks like I missed these spots again. So let's do a quick group by normals. I think I should be able to, whoops, lost my tool menu. I should be able to now just crease by polygroups and get the same result, which I can do. 1, 2, 3, crease, uncrease all, 4, 5. Oof, a little bit too hefty. Why don't we try that? Let's try this. I think if I do it all in one mesh, I can get a nice texture out of this. So, crease. Got my creases. I'm going to put one more crease in here. Here. Radial symmetry in Y. For 3 of these guys. Crease there, crease there, crease there, crease there. Should maintain GL. Let me turn off poly paint just so I can see what I'm doing. Okay. So that's just one single mesh with UVs. Hopefully. Crease 3 times, crease, uncrease all, crease, crease. Not bad. 6.2 million pieces of geo, or polys, active points. Got everything I need there. I can go back, go up here, turn my colors back on. And I can come in here and hopefully make these into lights. Fill object MRGB. These seem to have blown that. Color that with this MRGB. Fill object. There we go. So now I got these lights here on the outside that'll match those lights. I believe I have UVs for everything. Now I'll grab these, fix those little crepes. So it's faster to be exclusive. Turn those off. Turn this off. Oh, running low on memory. Cancel. Let's delete. Get some stuff out of here. Running low on memory. I think if I shut down Photoshop, that'll do it. Okay. Ooh, that's a close one. Let's save while we're at it. And then I'll probably just do a select lasso for this middle bit. Hide that. Okay. Now let's grab this color, fill object MRGB. Okay. At long last, with a few hiccups here and there, we have a UV'd, high resolution mesh with lower. So let's create. And I don't have UVs. Unbelievable. So when I merge low, no UVs used for this model. When so I made a mistake when I merged the lows. I did not do a merge with UV selected apparently. So as a result, yeah, damn, I forgot to enable UVs when I merged. So I might need to do that again. However, let's see if we can rescue this. I'm not gonna be able to do it without multiple textures. Let's try it one more time. Sorry folks for the mistake here. If I merge visible with UVs, yeah, it says that I did. Let's try it again. All low. That's so strange. Oh, I got my UVs on my low. Let's go back. Append my low. Rename this to disk low. This one has UVs. I noticed none of the polypane information. It's so strange. Try this via projection. Might work. Okay. Disk high looks like so. Disk low is here. If I do my normal creasing, symmetry radial 3. Talk about iterative pipeline. Not the speed that I'm used to. Crease, 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 crease. Maybe need to change the title from not so rapid workflow. Okay, not bad. Delete, delete. Subdivide, crease, increase all, subdivide, subdivide. Not bad. I'm gonna try and do this via projection. So that's another workflow we can try out. I've got my low poly. It does have UVs. Hopefully. Yep. Got our UVs. They're all in one place. Got my high poly. 2 meshes total. Simplification. Apologies for the delay here, guys. I haven't actually done this workflow in probably years, actually. Let's try a 2K map. You know, all of our disks are 1K maps, but let's try 2. I just hope that action right there didn't just use my UVs. It didn't. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just blow this. I'm going to project the high poly to the low poly, and maybe, yeah, the geo and the colors came with it. Not bad. I feel like if I divided it up a little bit more, let's do a test here.